AI is a powerful tool, but its effectiveness relies very much on how well it's integrated with domain expertise, the researcher's unique domain expertise. And researchers should focus on expanding their knowledge across disciplines and honing the creative skills to prepare to engage in a more meaningful dialogue with AI tools as they evolve. So I think that we need, as scientists, to establish a very broad knowledge base crossing multiple disciplines, while we also have our own expertise area.
Hey there, welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. I'm your host, David Brulman, and today we're diving deep into the fascinating world of cell and gene therapy with an extraordinary guest. Lars Brandén has walked the path from groundbreaking academic research at Karolinska Institute to building a revolutionary high-throughput cell biology center at Columbia and Yale. Now serving as the Director of Biology at Kolibri in Paris, Lars brings us a unique perspective on bridging the academic-industry divide. In part 1 of this special episode, we'll explore his remarkable journey and uncover the future of personalized medicine. So grab a coffee and let's dive in. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brulman, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics at market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech. Welcome, Lars. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Lars, share something that you believe about bioprocess development that most people disagree with.
Well, one thing that I don't know how controversial it is, that you see this agile development model that works well in software, and it shows really that it doesn't easily translate to bioprocess development. Biology operates on a very slower timeline, require careful long-term experimentation. And when you have agile, you emphasize rapid iteration there. But biological systems, even small changes can lead to unpredictable outcomes. And however, when you integrate biology with software and hardware engineering teams, they can work together efficiently, but they do need this strategically alignment of their efforts. And so biology team can focus on optimizing experiments and sharing the data, while the software team can adopt more agile methods then to develop the tools based on the biological insights then. And then you take like regular integration points between the different teams, allowing each team to progress independently. And while you then at the same time assure that the biology and software and hardware can work in harmony then. So you don't try to push biology to work in an agile way, which is not really fitting the way biology works. That's something I can see sometimes, that people try to force biology to work in an agile manner. And I've rarely, if ever, seen that work out well in the long run. That's something I've been thinking about.
Yeah, we can definitely learn a lot from other industries and leverage that. And from my experience, what I've seen in my career is that biotech is still quite a conservative industry. So certain ideas just take time until they land, and then people leverage that potential. But
I mean, you have a lot of happy startup companies, and they have been reading about how you should do agile development, and they just think that sounds really good. We can do the sprints and we can just make this go really fast. But then biology and the real world intervenes there. It doesn't really work out that well.
That's definitely true. And the practical side is still different. And I think biotech is a particular industry. Now, before we dive into a bit more in more detail, let's talk about yourself for a minute, Lars. Can you guide us through your remarkable journey from academia to industry leadership and tell us what were the pivotal moments along the way that led you from a lab to ultimately becoming a CEO?
Well, my fascination with science started really early, and much of that is thanks to my father. He was a radiologist, and I really read up a lot on biology and medicine from his medical library he had, and I was fascinated by viruses. They just go into the target cell and they insert their genetic material there, and I thought, that's a great thing. I could use that to put in healthy therapeutic genes into sick cells. I thought I came up with the most brilliant idea ever. And I told my father that I would do gene therapy when I was about 10 or 11. And he thought, oh, interesting. But then during my PhD at the Karolinska Institute, I did work on gene therapy. We were the first group in northern Scandinavia and northern Europe, I think, that started working on gene therapy. And I came up with some innovations, that patents, and also led to the foundation of a startup company that I opened together with my advisor at the time and a couple of other research groups. And that really opened my eyes to how industry can accelerate the outcome of any kind of innovations you have if you compare it to academia. And a pivotal moment, I would say, was during my work at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, where I worked then at the time on a genome-wide human siRNA library that we synthesized and built in-house. And during this process that worked out really well, I got recruited then, thanks to that work, to Columbia University to formulate a high-throughput screening center. It was one of the NIH roadmap initiatives. When I did that, when I built that from scratch and operated and led that center, I really felt that I fitted in quite well there in this kind of targeted and quite intense surrounding of, you have your metrics you should uphold, but you also at the same time this need to be innovative and come up with new ideas and solutions. So it was this cross-section of industrial applications and methods together with this drive in science and innovations combined that really made me like the idea of working in the industry more than the academia. Don't get me wrong, academia is a fantastic environment for innovation and research also, but I think it fitted my personality better to be in the more industrial kind of environment. And now when I'm the director of biology at Kolibri, I try to blend this scientific background with strategic leadership to drive the technology development forward also. But I think the kick was working and building the Columbia high-throughput screening center. That was what really got me going. And of course, it was growing over time at the Karolinska Institute, doing the startup and everything. So I guess I always had the idea that I wanted to work in industry a long time ago.
Since you have seen different environments, you've worked in academia, in pharma, in medtech, you're now a consultant. How has this diverse background and experience shaped your approach to solving complex biological problems?
From what I can tell, at least, is that my really diverse experience has been truly invaluable. So academia taught me scientific rigor. And pharma and medtech, they exposed me to scalability, regulatory challenges, and the market dynamics of getting innovations out. And I think then, for example, at Kolibri, where we developed this acoustic bioreactor and transfection technologies, my background really helps me consider everything from technological robustness to compliance. This kind of holistic approach, I think, allows me to tackle complex biological problems in a more effective manner because I always have the big picture in mind, and I try to not get stuck into what might be a really interesting scientific problem. You just get stuck there. But I always try to say, now we need to stop here because this is good enough. And then you need to take the next step, and you need to have the final goal in mind all the time. Something like that.
Yeah, isn't it all about the big picture, like knowing where you want to get to and then reverse engineer it, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. But I mean, I do understand it's very easy to get absorbed by a conundrum or an issue that you identify during your research or your development work. And it's so easy to get sidetracked and you want to go into this other track because it's really interesting, but it doesn't lead you forward. It doesn't lead to the direction where you need to go. So I think that's something that my background has taught me to be better at saying no and stop when it's good enough.
Yeah, I like that. Stop when it's good enough. And 80% sometimes is better than 100%, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because if you have 80% of a solution, but if you have 100%, it takes you all the time and resources. You don't have the time to finalize the product instead. That's a big issue then.
Now let's talk about the field in general, because with your extensive experience in immunology and bioinformatics, how do you envision these fields converging in the future?
That's a tricky one. I can see that, for example, when you look at AI and large language models, for example, and how we are dealing with them, I think scientists need to be even more comfortable with data and algorithms and how they function, basically. But more importantly, we must learn to ask the right questions and interpret the AI's insights or messages to us. Because AI is a powerful tool, but its effectiveness relies very much on how well it's integrated with domain expertise, the researcher's unique domain expertise. And researchers should focus on expanding their knowledge across disciplines and honing their creative skills to prepare to engage in a more meaningful dialogue with AI tools as they evolve. So I think that we need, as scientists, to establish a very broad knowledge base crossing multiple disciplines while we also have our own expertise area. And this kind of breadth of expertise will allow us then to understand better the results we're generating from AI, but also in the dialogue that you have with the large language models when you talk to them, basically. You need to understand the answers, if it's just pure nonsense or if it's going the right direction. But you need to have this depth of knowledge to be able to evaluate the answers. And we need to be better at that, not being so very focused on one single subject. We need to broaden our perspectives a bit more to utilize these kind of tools better. I see that as what will happen more and more, that scientists will need a broader knowledge base combined with their domain expertise to be able to use these tools in a more efficient manner. Combined with creative skills also. You need to understand how you should phrase your questions and how those questions then leads you to the next step in creating a model, for example, using a large language model, for example. But it's a challenge, definitely. You need to have maybe a longer education, broader education to use these tools better.
It sounds a lot to me like becoming a good communicator with these tools, because the AI and large language models, they are very powerful, but we need to understand what we're doing and we need to know how to speak to them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I see this all the time when people start using various AI tools that either they said it's just rubbish that comes out from it. It makes no sense at all, or it just says that, well, this is just standard things that everyone knows. But it's when you start shifting the questions and the queries and how you ask questions to the AI systems you have, you realize that it's all in your power to build up a good kind of answer also. It's rubbish in, rubbish out. Sad to say, but that's very frequently the problem.
And how do you think will our role as scientists change as these models will become better, faster, more powerful?
I think we will use the ever-evolving AIs. That the development is amazingly fast. They will become more like a dialogue partner and a resource for us to get quick answers to factual questions that we otherwise would have to look up manually. And then we can easily then build up a answer structure a bit by querying the AI and refine the answers over time. But you need to have your own reference points of what is correct and what is incorrect as you generate the answers from the AI. And I think we just need to expand our training quite a lot as scientists so we can have a more sound knowledge base to stand on to be able to use these AI tools in the best possible way. That's my feeling about it anyway, from what I've seen so far.
And well, Obviously, yes, it will change the way we interact. It will change the way we will do research and development and manufacturing. So what is your take on how this will impact the way we are developing drugs, for instance, through develop personalized medicine or driving down the cost in the cell and gene therapy?
Oh, yeah. I would say in the next 5 years, maximum, AI and machine learning will significantly transform drug discovery. It's already done that to a large degree, but it will start, you can see a reduction of time and costs in processes and things like that. And various AI tools, then they are already predicting molecular interactions and they're optimizing delivery methods in gene and cell therapy. And this will lead to more and more accurate simulations of therapies that you can then implement in vivo, and potentially speeding up the preclinical phases and decreasing the reliance also on animal models rather dramatically, I believe. And AI systems will also help to identify the therapeutic strategies that traditional methods would take much longer to discover. So I think there's so many different aspects of drug discovery and cell and gene therapy where AI tools will make a very significant impact. But hopefully the time it takes to develop each therapeutic, as well as the cost, will go down dramatically with improved production methods and reduced production times, and also cheaper methods. Because the cell and gene therapy interventions we have today, they are many times very expensive. And if we could cut down the production time 50%, and if we can cut down the human interaction needed to produce some of these handmade therapeutics many times, that would mean a lot more people get access to cutting edge therapeutics, and we can save more lives and also reduce the suffering, especially when you consider cancer, where you have many people that go through very traumatic radiation and chemotherapies, where they only in the last stages, when they have relapsed a couple of times, nothing else is available, that they might be considering to go for the CAR T cell therapy, for example. But in many cases, it might be too late. They might be too far gone. But if we can make the threshold lower for when you can give these very efficient therapies many times to patients at an earlier stage, I think that would make a very big difference for many people. That's how I see it, at least.
Yeah, you're making an excellent point. Definitely, I agree with that. We should be able to treat people faster, or let's say earlier, and then the chances of recovery will be much higher. And I think that's the big challenge with the current therapies, that most people can't access these life-saving therapies.
Yeah, they get it maybe too late also. And they have been forced then to go through the so-called traditional therapies, which are frequently extremely taxing and really hurting the individual. It's basically competition. Who gives up first, the patient or the cancer? And to be able to step away from that kind of situation and go for a still very aggressive treatment, and with some side effects, of course, but still not at all as, I would say, harsh as the more aggressive chemo and radiation therapies. That would be fantastic.
And that wraps up part 1 of our insightful conversation with Lars Brandén. Join us next time as we further explore the fascinating intersection of AI and biological research and discover what the future holds for cell and gene therapy. Before we go, do you want to develop biologics better, faster, and at a fraction of the cost? Our fractional CTO services might be exactly what you need. Curious? Book a free call with me to learn more about how we can help accelerate your journey to success. All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.